Good evening and namaste, everyone. Welcome to this next episode of The Emerging Future. I'm Vimal Mahendru, and it is my privilege today, especially, to have Professor Kabil Ramachandran from the ISP, who's joined us especially for this session. Professor Ram, as he's fondly known to all, is part of the founding faculty of the ISP, Hyderabad. Currently, he is the executive director of the Thomas Schmidheiny Center of the Family Enterprise. He specializes in family business, entrepreneurship, and strategy, and has over 30 years of experience. He has been a member of several national level committees of the Government of India, World Bank, SEBI, and he's also on the boards of several large family business companies. He advises large and small family businesses in governance matters. His latest book, incidentally, The 10 Commandments of Family Business, is a bestseller and is available online. Of course, and today we'll be chatting a lot about his experiences, his research, and his final message on what makes family businesses tick and how to perpetuate the family business. So before I go to Professor Ram, just some quick housekeeping rules. One, of course, please keep your microphones muted at all times. Use the Q&A section for posing any queries that you may have. If you make your questions precise, this will get a very specific response. And of course, use the chat box for comments, suggestions, compliments, or counterpoints that you may have. This session, of course, will be recorded and available for you later on. So, Professor Ram, welcome. Namaste to you. And I trust you are working from home in Hyderabad, still teaching, consulting, guiding from home.
Indeed. Good evening, Vimal and all the other friends. It's a great pleasure to meet, chat with all of you. Vimal and I have known for each other for about 15 years now. I think
yes, actually, that's when I joined you on the family business program at ISP.
Correct. So that's what I remember. Yeah. So one of the first programs where Professor John Ward was there. And
yes.
I joined with the entire family. Your father and brothers were there, and so it was really, really great. So I'm on campus, completely locked down inside the campus, but it's a beautiful campus. So therefore, it's not a big distraction. Actually, it allows me to concentrate a lot on my work, writing. So the COVID has not hampered my productivity a lot. Except that I don't travel. Even otherwise, I had cut down on my travel. I'm trying to avoid travel. But I think that the major benefit of this is that we are all getting accustomed to working through the electronic media, digital media.
Exactly.
More and more used to that, which is good for me because then I can continue interactions without actually traveling a lot.
Exactly. So tell me, what took you to Hyderabad, and how was the feeling as a founding faculty of such an institution, which very rapidly, I guess less than 10 years, became one of the top 12 business schools in the world? How's been that journey?
Yeah, it's a very, very long story, but cutting it short. See, I hail from a village in Kerala. I grew up there. I went to the government school. Studied everything in the Malayalam medium, and then I went to university, and then I came to Hyderabad as a consultant for the IDBI, and then I got a scholarship to go abroad for my PhD. When I finished my PhD, I got an offer from IIM Ahmedabad that as a faculty in the strategy entrepreneurship area. So I came back in '86, and for the next 15 years. 15 years I was at Ahmedabad.
Okay.
And
that was IIM Ahmedabad, right?
IIM Ahmedabad. Okay. So that actually when I was working with the IDBI, I had opportunities to meet, interact with SMEs because I was a consultant on SME challenges. Okay, new projects, revival, growth, everything. So the IIM, while I was at IIM, I got busy with, again, SMEs and the growth firms, particularly in terms of their strategy, growth, and things like that. So that was the time when I got connected with the family businesses. Okay, and then 2001, when ISB was set up, I got an invitation to come and set up the Entrepreneurship Center. And since why I said this Hyderabad connection earlier was that I knew Hyderabad very well. Okay. And when I came back, when I was getting this offer, I mean, when I visited Hyderabad again, when I looked at it closely, I found that the city had changed. It was getting transformed under the leadership of Mr. Chandrababu Naidu. And therefore, I thought this will be a great opportunity to be part of a new institution. And I always believed in contributing to institution building. So therefore, it all came together. 2001, it was to set up a Center for Entrepreneurship at the ISB. And since I was working in entrepreneurship and Hyderabad was changing, this was a newly set up new dream of many of the academics as well as the industry leaders to set up a new institute. So that gave me the opportunity and to be part of this journey, exciting journey at ISB.
Fantastic. Must have been almost an entrepreneurial journey in many ways because you're trying to build from scratch.
Yes. Yeah.
So are you bringing some of those?
The major benefit of being in some good academic institution is that you get an opportunity to explore yourself and you can be an entrepreneur. So for instance, when I was in IIM, I had the freedom to experiment, offer new programs, do new things. So when I came to ISB, it was much more in a bigger scale and magnitude. So therefore, it was quite exciting, and all through it has been exciting.
Okay, so I have a specific question, and on call today, especially, I have a lot of my friends and family who are either multi-generational family businesses, who are either founders and now thinking of having family members join. There are husband and wife teams which are in family businesses. There are siblings who are, so there are lots of these. And I'm sure you've been there, seen that, and you've done enough work with all of such different types of family business. What is it that makes them work? And why is it that some family businesses kind of flounder? I remember your lesson from even 15 years back where you said that, everything starts as a family business, but then somewhere along the way it goes, shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves kind of thing. So tell me something about the very basics of this family business and the challenges there.
Yeah, I think one fundamental thing is that all families want to live together happily. Prosperity is important, harmony is important, caring is important, love each other. So that's a given thing. Okay. And then the question is that why do they get into trouble later when it comes to sometimes in the second generation, sometimes in the third generation, and it can happen in the first generation itself. As the families expand, as the business expands, why do they get it? So I'm actually developed a concept called gridlock, and I'm working on it, refining that how families get into a gridlock from which they find it difficult to exit. Okay, so let me tell you the basic fundamental reason, and many people don't realize that. Fundamentally, family and business are two different systems, completely different systems. Completely different systems in the sense that family is driven by, as I said, harmony, give and take, flexibility, equality. For instance, if you take your own family, Vimal, Vivek, Vinay, all are equal. Yeah. Okay. So that's how family is. I mean, everybody is equal. Okay. And you have it's a birthright to everything in the family, every family member. And therefore, the success of a family is its ability to keep it all together, supporting each other, helping each other, and facilitating the welfare of everybody. But will that principle apply in the business context? Look at any business. Business success depends on competitiveness. It's not because of law. If somebody is buying your product or selling something, it's because there is a commercial dimension. So the competitiveness comes from the products and services you are offering and its competitive relevance to the buyers. And that comes only if you have high quality people there. And which also means that the decisions have to be objective. Decisions have to be driven by merit. It's not because so-and-so is my family member, or it is because I like it. Customer doesn't bother whether you like it or not. Customer wants something. So business is completely driven by objectivity. Objective, meritorious things, and it has to be driven because efficiency is important. Efficiency comes from structure, organization structure, systems. And if you really want to have that achievement, you need to have a clear strategy. So strategy, structure, systems, and objective decision-making, logic, all these things are fundamentally required for business, which is quite different from family.
Exactly. This is almost totally opposite to what we want in family, which is equality and harmony and no conflict.
Which is, I mean, something like, I mean, if you go back to the communism versus capitalism, these are two different extreme systems.
Yes.
And what people try to do is to extend the family principle into the business domain. Okay, you start applying that in the business context. And then that leads to conflict because some people, I mean, there are multiple dimensions. I won't get into details of it. One dimension is that some people may look at it objectively, some people may not look at it objectively. Some people may say that this is, if my brother is involved or my sister is involved, I also have a right to be there, whether the business requires or not. Okay, so there are multiple challenges like that. There is no decision-making process at home. It is the hierarchy, family hierarchy, which drives. Okay, whereas in the business, it doesn't matter. The youngest may be the most capable, and that's not accepted. Okay, so the conflicts start coming from that. There is also yet another dimension of it, is that if you look at the transactional analysis principle, you also find that there is something called the parent, adult, child as the norms, I mean, dimensions of behavior. So the parent may look at the child, the child, son or daughter, as a child, whereas the child may think that I'm already an adult or a parent. Okay, so a variety of these things, families get into a lot of problems as they expand. Okay, so it can happen in joint family, it can happen between parent and child, it can happen between siblings, it can happen between spouses. Okay, I can go on and on, but let me stop here and then let me listen to you.
Okay, so you mentioned these two dimensions, the business context, which is very objective and very logic driven and strategy and, market forces, and family, which is about harmony, it's about bringing egalitarianism, equality, and not raising conflicts. But of course, these two have to couple in a family business. So what is it that makes for good coupling? And maybe there are different dimensions to it. How to couple it, maybe from first generation to second generation. How to couple it between husband and wife, which could be different from siblings. So maybe if you could elaborate in these three different dimensions.
Most family business people, most members of business families don't know that this is the reality. Family and business are two different systems. They don't know. They are experts, excellent in terms of doing business. But this basic knowledge is not there. And my first message to families is that realize that these are two different heads, two different systems. If you want to travel in both, you have to realize that these are two different things. You can't apply the principle you are applying at home equally in the business context. I think that admission is the basic. So family education is the starting point. Family members should know that if Vimal is behaving like this in the office, if he is pushing with one decision, he's arguing objectively, it's not because he is against some family member or not. It's because he believes that logically that is the right thing. So the response has to be logical. It's not emotional. Okay. So I think that understanding of that is very important. Then the second thing is that since there is an overlap between family and business, especially in terms of several areas, you mentioned many of these things. For instance, it may be about working together. It may be about the ownership of that. It's not only working together, it may be about the entry. It may be about remuneration, perquisites. It may be about retirement. It may be about starting a new business. It may be about who you can inherit to who cannot inherit. Okay, so variety of areas are there. So what is required is families to develop policies for this. Okay, so which means that the two policies, for instance, if I just take entitlement policy at home, you are entitled to equal attention, equal resources, equal everything. Okay, and the policy for the business is that if you are good, you can have it if the business requires you. Okay, if you are not good, you may not get that. So you need to develop the policies for many of these things, and families hesitate to do that, primarily because families don't know that these are required. Okay, so if you put all these policies together, that's called the family governance. Okay, so for instance, you asked me about the spouses. Which is a big area now. In many first generation entrepreneurs, they have their spouses are also working, and so these are family businesses. I'm not sure whether these families have any rule about discussion of the business related matters or family related matters. Family related things are discussed at workplace. Work related things are discussed at family. Okay.
Very normal.
I don't have to elaborate. So sometimes bedroom issues will get into the boardroom. Boardroom issues will come into the bedroom. Okay. So you can imagine that. So if there is a rule, there is a principle, very clear, that these cannot be mixed up. See, for instance, if I take just one more second, because of the COVID, we are all working from home. For most people, there is no boundary of family time and office time.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you get up, you get onto the laptop or the mobile and then start working. And the assumption of the bosses, so to say, is that anyway she or he is at home, so I can speak to that person. It doesn't have to be 9 o'clock. I don't have to meet that person in the office. Okay. Even at 9:30 at night, I can call and say that, why don't you finish this or something. Okay, so it's very important to demarcate. And I mean, there are many people who have said what to do, but I personally believe that draw the lines. So I think that is the major. Yes.
Coming back to a point that you made, that had some rules, basic rules of how to of entitlement was one of the example, and this is a question which has just come in also. How to even begin making rules? And somewhere there is either a hesitation or there is a discomfort. Imagine a father trying to set rules at home which are egalitarian, and theoretically, in the work context, trying to differentiate between the two. It could be his sons, it could be his younger brother and his son. It's a complex situation. So what some tips on how to do this rule book work?
Yeah, I would say that, if I take it through a process, step by step. First is family education. Family members, I would say, whether they are involved in the business or not, so long as they are family members and inheritors. There are many family members who may not be involved in this, but they are also stakeholders. So I think creating this education is more important. This kind of a dialogue, or there are materials in the YouTube, or go for a training program or other things like that. Okay. So therefore, people would know that you need to have separation of the business related decisions from the family related decisions. So therefore, admitting that these are two different things. Okay. So which also is an acceptance that you need to have specific policies for the business. So if I take the entitlements as an example,
Yeah.
okay, one of my most the widely seen problems is the credit card, use of credit card. Okay, family may say that credit card should be used only for official purposes, but how do you define official? Have you ever tried to say what is official, what is not official? Okay, so therefore there are dilemmas. So I have seen that there are 5 Ds. I call it as a road to hell. Okay. Families have dilemmas. Dilemmas, for instance, if I take the credit card thing, or coming to office on time, or even using mobile phone during meeting when there is a rule that you will not touch your mobile phone. Okay. Dilemma is there. Shall I mention this? Shall I? What will the other person think? Or if I have a meeting and say that, Vimal, I find that so and so is not coming on time for this meeting, or he is using mobile. So I said that I will tell the head of the family. Vimal will say that, no, Ram, don't make it an issue. We will sort it out and things like that. So there are dilemmas. Okay, dilemmas lead to deviation. So if I am doing it, Vimal will do it, or somebody else will do it. Deviations lead to differences. Differences lead to disputes and destruction. Okay, so what I'm saying is that families would realize that this is a drift which happens in families, and that leads to destruction, family fights, and things like that. So where do you start? So identify areas where there are dilemmas, where there are burning issues. Okay, in my book at the end I have a diagnostic questionnaire. Okay, where I have mentioned that these are, I mean, I asked the respondent to rate on a 3 point scale. What is it, that less important, important, most important kind. Okay, whether some of the issues are important or not important. Critical, less critical, most critical. The other, on the same dimension, as, are you satisfied with the current situation? Completely dissatisfied to completely satisfied. So if people can look at it and then pick out some of them, the low hanging, the more important thing, more disturbing things. Okay, and then deliberate on why it is happening. So some families are comfortable opening up on their own. Some families may not be. If it is at the early stages, dilemma stage, it is much easier. If the family environment is smooth, it is easier. If there is a family leader, it doesn't have to be the eldest leader who is acceptable, who can facilitate this discussion, so much better. Okay, you don't necessarily have to have a consultant. Okay, a family advisor is good. Okay, why unnecessarily pay to a doctor? There is no point in paying to a doctor if you can cure it. But the facilitation by somebody is important. So during this facilitation, you find solutions. Why is it a dilemma? Because it's not good for the business, or it's not in the right interest of the business. So yeah, go ahead.
So that's a good hint you're giving, that for these kind of sensitive discussions, one, you make a point that it's important to discuss these and bring these issues to the table, even if they are a little uncomfortable, and to ease the process, maybe get a family advisor, somebody whom the whole family holds in respect. You're not necessarily a consultant, as you say, or or a doctor, but perhaps a family confidant who's respected by all.
Yeah.
That's one. The other question is, what are those very important tips to take as to which should be the first points to be discussed? Is entitlement the first one? Is something else from your experience or research?
My experience is that it varies from family to family, depending on whether you are in the pre-dilemma stage or in advanced stage. Okay, that is one. Second is that sometimes there are triggers. Triggers in the sense that there may be an inheritance issue. Okay, so if if the I mean, we will come to this separately later about the Hindu jars. Okay.
Yes, that's one of the questions. Yeah.
We'll come to that separately. But sometimes there are critical issues. I'll give you an example. One of my students asked me to meet his family in Mumbai. It's a business family, Gujarati business family. And the big issue was that one of the uncles was resisting any family policy. Okay. The reason was that, and then my student quietly told me later that he has only one daughter and his son-in-law is involved in the business. If there are new policies introduced, he is apprehensive whether the son-in-law would be out or not. They don't have a policy or anything. He starts fearing. So he said that the status quo is the better. Okay.
Yeah.
So there may be some triggers like that. But in most cases, these are simple things, operational issues, decisions. Okay. Because if two family members are involved in two different functions, let's say that somebody is in production, somebody is in marketing or finance, definitely there will be clashes, sub-optimization of this, decision making, somebody is happy, somebody is not happy. And if the discussion is not formal, then it leads to problems. So one of the things is that, so identify these things, operational issue, this may be the one. Second, maybe the credit card kind of thing coming late. And it may also be, next stage may be that very often the next generation member is brought through the back door. It's an apprentice, intern, without any designation or anything. And after 6 months, the father or mother, whoever will say that, why do you want to work free? And she or he should be paid something. And then that triggers a question and all. Okay. So that's the reason more of it is from the operational side. Two stages. One is more of typical operations. Second is with a lot of strategic elements involved.
So there's a very interesting question related to what you're saying. And this comes from a friend who's in a multi-generational joint family, and the joint family is running a family business. That means a running enterprise. The question is, can a joint family run the family business effectively without relational dynamics getting into the way? Of course, I'm sure your answer is yes. But any tips on that? How to form rules for which is already into the process. So it's a mature business, not a startup.
Not necessarily startup. See, if you take outside India, there are many examples, but within India also there are some examples which are multi-generational, larger family businesses, which haven't had a major crisis. Okay, I won't say that they haven't faced crisis at all. So any one of them will have some crisis or other at different points in time. So I think that the major uniqueness about them are 2-3 different dimensions. One is that sort of a realization that governance in the family is very crucial for everybody's benefit. Okay, so I think that is the major, and their confidence that they can find solutions which are fair to everybody. I mean, which you know that good governance means that you are taking care of the interest of all stakeholders, not shareholders, fairly, the fairness to all stakeholders. If that is transparently practiced from the first generation onwards, I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
There was a Marwari family here. Again, one of my students, he called up last month and said that the family is going to a split. Okay, this is the third generation family business with, I think they may have 15, 20 members or something like that. And the trigger is that the leader, who is the eldest brother of his father. Okay, he started siphoning out money. He started siding with his son for many things in terms of works, in terms of facilities, in terms of privileges and things like that. And nobody knew that. Everyone trusted him. And now it has come in the open. Okay. So what I'm saying is that the leader has to set standards of fairness. And that transparency, trust are very important. So if the joint family has that retained, it's not the money part. It is part that confidence in everybody that nobody is going to cheat. Everyone is for everybody else. I think that is the first thing. And the second thing is that together we can grow. Together we can build better. Scale economies are there. So that will disappear if you break up. Okay, you have enough number of examples of families that splinter groups and then they die out. Maybe one group may come out of it, but in most cases, it's more like an amoebic one. Okay, so if you take these families, one major thing is that there are governance principles. Okay, so I mean, in any of these big families, multi-generational, they have governance principles for the family, for the business, and they have rules for entry of the next generation. It's very clear, transparent. It doesn't matter whose child this individual is, qualification, experience, the process of career growth. Okay, these are all defined. In some families, these are written down. Some families, these are not written down. But I would urge everybody to write down, because if it is unwritten, we are leaving a lot to imagination and assumption.
So, if I may sum up, try and,
Yeah.
what I hear you saying is that for family businesses, however painful it is, however challenging it may be, but getting getting everybody to sit together, discuss, and write something out, which is whatever be their rules, writing it down is important.
Correct. And which also means there is some sacrifice.
Absolutely.
Some sacrifice. Yeah. So I mean, democracy means there is sacrifice, or if you want to have everything, so there is sacrifice. Okay. So you can't have your cake and eat it too kind of thing. You
so
can't
it's
do
a
everything.
give and take, some kind of dialogue, consensus building.
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
It is possible. What I'm saying is that don't go by the community, so to say, community rule.
Sure.
Or if you ask anybody for free advice, they will say that split.
Exactly. So I have two questions, again, coming from audience here. One is, depending on scale of business, some may be relatively smaller businesses, 10, 20, 30, 50 crore businesses. Some may be, 1,000 crores or bigger. Are the challenges different? If they're all multi-generational, let's say, or it's husband and wife or spouses together, children working together, siblings, is there a difference in that?
There is a difference, but fundamentally these are the same.
Okay.
The challenges are of two kinds. One is that if the business is bigger, and if these are of different sizes, and if there is no rule about the performance evaluation, merit, or anything like that, okay, that leads to a lot of conflict. Second dimension of the size, if it is fairly big, people will say that we can split. If it is 1,000 crores, sure, well, let's have a two-way split or three-way split, and still I will get my 200, 300, 400 crores. And that's good enough, because I never thought I would ever get more than 100 crores. Okay, because most families start with from scratch, and they would not think that they are going to be crore-padis, big crore-padis. Okay, so they don't want to take the cost of accommodating. And that's much more if you are already into the deviation, differences and dispute stage. Okay. If it is small, then the questions are about eligibilities, responsibilities, whether everyone is contributing to building it, whether everyone is required for running the business or not, because it cannot be an employment exchange.
Sure.
It can be. I mean, if there is, we analyze into another way is that what is important? Business is important or family is important? In terms of family decision and business decision. Okay. So there are families which will say that whether it is business or family, family is more important. So everyone should have a place to work there. So it may not be making a lot of profit, but everyone is happy. Okay. So I think that clarity is, so the challenges fundamentally are the same. As the business is more complex, as the family is more complex, the complexity grows, but size also has an influence.
Okay. And then the second question was related to Indian culture itself. We have our own cultural nuances, the way our joint family works, the way, traditionally women have not been in the workplace, or inheritance laws have been different. How is Indian family business different from overseas? And an add-on question, which has just come in, how is it evolving? Do you see a difference in this generation?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, without getting into detail, see, the fundamental principle in joint family is that everything belongs to everybody. Mm-hmm. And the wisdom flows from the oldest to the youngest. Okay. And that is, I mean, there is a reason for that, and that you need some hierarchy, some line of command in the family to keep it all together. So therefore, we are imbibed with this culture that respect the elder. Okay. So respect the boss. So you don't go against the wishes or the norms of the senior person. Even if your brother is just 2 years older, he is bhaiya. Okay. You don't call that individual by name. Mm-hmm. Okay. So therefore, we are ingrained with this kind of a culture. So that culture may not work in the business. So that is one basic thing between Indian way of running as well as the business. Okay. So joint family is fine, but if you apply the joint family principle in the business context, that not. The one major observation abroad is that abroad is a very, 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 I won't say it's the correct usage, because Asian families versus the European families versus Latin American versus the Middle East, especially the Orient to the Middle East, the hierarchy is very, very clear. Okay. Yeah. Europe, they call by name. Okay. I don't know that you remember the One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. The children call the father as Atticus. Okay. So you call by name and all. So there is a lot of difference there. So that is one part of it. Okay. So what is happening now is that the joint family system itself is changing. Okay, the society is changing. Joint families breaking up, nuclear families are coming. More of equality is there, equality and capabilities. Earlier, the assumption was that only men can do the work, men can do business. I mean, it goes back to the hunting days when men would go and get the food and things like that. Okay, those days are gone. So now there is greater acceptance that education is important, equality is their capability. Very often girls may be more capable, smarter than the boys. Okay, so that's changing. So I think there is an acceptance, there is a requirement of the acceptance that this is the reality. And then respond to it saying that what is good for the family and what is good for the business, and have that open culture, open conversation. I think that's what is required.
Okay. Before I go forward, another very interesting question that has come up. How do you peg responsibilities when there is a business failure? It's a family business. In the business, in a family, of course, everybody's equal. But on the business side, if there is a business failure and consequent outcomes of that, anything that you would like to share for that?
If it is a, let's say, corporate, you have strategy, you have targets, you have performance metrics and KRA, KPI, or whatever it is. Okay, there are at least some mechanism for measurement of performance. Expectations are set. In families, that is never done, or mostly it is never done. And any performance evaluation is seen as fixing people. So you don't want to get into it. Okay. So that is one part of it. Second is that business failure does not mean the individual failure. Business may fail for a variety of reasons. Okay, even the best of the best, the smartest of the smartest person may not be able to save a business if the industry is going through bad, location is bad, there are material issues, pollution issues, a variety of things. Okay, so what it means is that you need to have a objective PMS, performance management system,
Sure.
which means that, and also a lousy individual may do exceedingly well if the market is flourishing. Okay, and that individual cannot say that it's all because of me, and you are all fools.
True.
So I would say that introduce some sort of performance management system, even if it is not big business, small business, it is possible. I mean, medium business, it is possible. And then get the expertise of people who have developed the performance management system. I know of some of the big families in India also, they have the PMS, performance management system. There is a fixed and variable pay. The range may not be huge, but they do that, and the appraisal is done by the CEO of that division and a board member, independent director.
Of the family members?
No, of the family members.
Okay.
All the next generation members are evaluated separately by the CEO of that company and by an independent director. Not that all family members are accepting that, but at least the rules are set very clearly in the beginning. That these are the dimensions we are going for. Transparent.
So I have another very interesting question from a friend in Dubai who's asking, age difference between two siblings, if it is very high, and the younger one is actually learning from the elder one, and suddenly he comes to the table and saying, hey, my rights, I have equal right. How does that play out?
Yeah, that's a very, very tough call. It's not very easy. One of my old trainees from Chandigarh area. So recently I had his company sold, and they have been going through this tussle, because the second generation, two cousins are one is extraordinary commitment, capabilities, everything. And the other cousin is lazy, not capable, cribbing, kind of all the negativities. And he would say that I should get all the entitlement, all the privileges of my cousin. Okay. And they were not able to amicably go through that. And they tried different things, but in practice, it was not implemented. Finally, they sold the company, and this person has been retained as the CEO of the company by the MNC which bought it over. Okay. So that's one. So if there are differences, again, I would say that 2-3 possibilities are there. One is mentoring is very important. The younger generation member, as well as the elder generation member, they have to be mentored. They should see the younger generation member cannot say that this is my entitlement. I should be equal to. This is one thing. Second thing is that separate dividend from salary or rewards. Okay. Dividend is equal depending on your ownership. But if somebody is building the business, then how are you going to reward them? That is where a good professional HR will be able to help. Okay. Because, for instance, if you are taking a corporate with multiple divisions, not all divisions are big, not all divisions are doing well. So they will have their own mechanism for evaluation. So I would say that something like that is important. And then again, this kind of conversation is important within the family. So if they start falling apart, that it's very dangerous. But therefore, your friend should bring them together. And I would say this kind of a thing, it's useful to get some outside help.
Okay. Another very interesting question, again from Dubai. technology is coming into everything, and the next 7, 8, 10 years are going to be about this digital transformation, and technology is going to change a lot of things. How do you see family businesses looking into this? Because family business otherwise is about tradition, egalitarianism, harmony, and here there is technology bringing in massive disruption. And the youngsters who are studying today in colleges, they come in with AI and blockchain and all these new ideas. And how does this blend? And are there any lessons in those areas?
Yeah, I would say that there are two responses I have. One is that digitization-led change is permanent. Okay. Accept that. So which means that the family businesses have to redefine themselves. It's not anymore a business family, it is an enterprising family. It's not family business, family entrepreneurship. Which also means that you close down some of the loss-making businesses or declining industries, move into new businesses, product life cycle, industry life cycle. So this is what is basically required. You can't say that my great-grandfather started this company, so you can't close it down. No.
Sure.
Okay. So change is permanent. Accept that. I think that is one fundamental thing. Second thing is that rewire yourself. Everyone has to be rewiring themselves. Some people may be able to do it faster than somebody else. For instance, my children will be able to adapt to AI or robotics or technology much faster than me. Okay. And they are born into that. It's a fish into water kind of thing. Okay. So recognize that if somebody has run the business for so many years, doesn't mean that that wisdom alone is going to drive your success in future.
Okay.
What is required is to involve the next generation, involve expertise. So the entrepreneurship may grow with the new generation members. So it is together we will find a solution to that. I would say the core thing is family entrepreneurship. And there is, you can't escape it. It's better to be proactive and then see where there are opportunities. And that is where the expertise of the yesteryears will come, because the wisdom of doing business will be there. So it's the assimilation of the conventional wisdom of judgment of business practices, some of the decision-making process, but adapted to the new environment.
Okay. I have lots of questions. In fact, more are coming in, but I want to touch first the two prominent cases. One is the Hinduja case. What do you think led to it, and maybe any learnings there? And then there's another one. So first about the Hindujas.
Hindujas came in the open yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean, at least
it's very fresh. Yes.
Yeah. Hindujas have been. This is the third generation. The second generation, four brothers were leading it, or are leading, and the eldest brother is, I think, 84 or 85. Yes. He's not keeping good health, and his daughter has moved the court in London about an agreement. Okay, the validity of an agreement. So the reason for it to become this kind of an issue is that Hindujas have an agreement, which was, I think, few years back they had signed, all the brothers, saying that everything is for everybody. So that is the typical Indian joint family principle, that everything belongs to everybody, and you may do many things with the business. The entities may be in somebody's name, it doesn't matter, but at the end of it, it's all yours. Okay. Yeah. So I remember when I was speaking to some next generation people, they said that they don't know who owns what, because it's all family.
Yeah.
So therefore, and the challenge is that if that is there, if the next generation is not bought into that, if they are not inducted into that process, that kind of a buy-in is not there, then there is a big challenge. That is one. Okay. The second thing is that if the businesses are in different names, let's say assume that I don't know the details about the Hinduja family, they have multiple vehicles, ownership vehicles, investment vehicles, like many other Indian companies.
Sure.
For a variety of reasons, tax reasons or other reasons, they may have it. And these vehicles are owned by family members. Okay, so it's all indirect holding. So if you look at it and if you closely find that most of the companies are in the name of one individual,
yeah,
okay, then it's inviting trouble. Okay, because if that jointness is not there, that individual may say that it's all in my name, why should I share? Or the inheritors may say that why should we share it? Okay, so therefore the question is that how do you ensure that if there are multiple investment vehicles and all, how do you address that? One possibility is to have a very clear shareholders agreement. That's what the other brothers are saying. We have a shareholders agreement. We have an agreement that whatever is in the name of everybody, it doesn't matter, everything belongs to everybody. And that is a signed document by all the four people. Okay. One of the legal opinions on that is that, has it been practiced since then? Okay, after the signing of it, if they were practicing it earlier, if they continue to practice it even since then, that means that it's a living document. Then that agreement may be valid. Okay, whereas if there is no agreement like that, it's quite probable that the current generation, senior generation members disappear and the next generation comes and they find that something is for somebody doesn't have anything, then that means it is going to be a big issue. So the current Hinduja issue is because of this. And that goes back to the question about family governance. It gives an impression that they did not practice family governance. They did not have a very clear constitution and a clear shareholders agreement. And ensure that, you need to build the scenarios, just like the scenarios you build in strategy. You need to have this kind of scenarios. If you build these scenarios, what happens? If the next generation children are not together, if they don't see eye to eye, how do we ensure that if there is no legal issues? Okay, and you know that there is also this IPL.
Yes,
Modi.
Yeah,
This is a case going on in Singapore, arbitration case.
Yes.
Okay, so it's all because of this. If you can bring it down to high quality family governance, clear family governance, clear documentation.
Okay, so I have this interesting question coming from a young person who's the second generation just inducted into family business, and they're saying, as a second generation person in a family business, what timeline should one set for business expansion? What objectives can be set in the short term and the long term? Or how to look at expansion opportunities, which may be about diversifying outside of...
It is a clear business question. I think depending on his background, he should understand how strategy is made. You have to look at the scenario of the opportunities. So there are multiple principles you can follow, including maybe the business plan, Porter analysis, and things like that. And resources, what kind of resources are available within the family, what kind of resources can be shared. And in the family context, the major thing is that if there are other stakeholders in the family, what are the policies followed or what are the policies possible for allocation of investment?
Financial resources.
I'll just add one more thing. In one Delhi-based family that I'm familiar with, the next generation members are not happy with the previous generation businesses. And next generation members wanted to start something. And when they approached the senior generation, they said, where is the money? Because all the surplus was reinvested in the business.
In the traditional business.
In the traditional business. And there is no wealth created outside. And the seniors said that, yes, we agree there is opportunity, but we don't have money for meeting all your requirements. Okay,
Understood.
so if they pick one, then the question is, why not the other?
Exactly.
So therefore, it also leads to the question of having a prudent wealth management practice also.
Okay. Thank you. I have some more questions coming in, but I want to wrap up because we are in the last 5 minutes. So my favorite questions for you first, uh, from all your learnings about family businesses in India of different kinds, sizes, different situations, different kinds of family members together, what would you say finally, for heaven's sake, do this, and for heaven's sake, just don't even do this? Are there any absolute boundary conditions which can be something that we can tie ourselves to?
Yes, yes. One is that believe in professionalism, believe in professionalization. Okay. Any discussion about business has to be professional. Professional in this way, it has to be objective. So I think that is very clear. And people, family members should know that it is that. Okay, that is one. The second thing is that family governance. Develop, practice family governance. Many people write constitution, many people talk about constitution, many people talk about family governance. Practice and live it. And then say that ownership is a responsibility. You are a member of the family, you have inherited, you have a responsibility to preserve it, pass it over to the next generation. So in that sense, you are a trustee of the wealth of the family business. I think that should be ingrained. If family businesses have to continue to flourish, continue to prosper, across the world, you will find that these two things. One is that governance, the other is professionalism. So I would say that if that is there, then there is no problem.
I recall clearly that, one of your first lessons you told me, don't think of family business as your fiefdom. Think of yourself as a trustee of this, bringing it from one generation, passing it on to the next.
Correct. I think that's see, that message should go. I mean, if you look at many families, children grow up, especially the traditional families where they say that this is all what we have, you have inherited it, and I got it from my father, I have preserved it, I have protected, I have invested in you, and you have to invest in your children. So build it together forever, kind of.
So my last question, where do you see family business evolving? You think in next 10 years it's going to be any different, or some of these basic fundamentals will still remain the same? You talked about change being permanent.
Fundamentals will remain the same. The processes may change because, for instance, if you take the Indian families itself, the word joint has gone. Okay, so accept that it is not the society has changed, but it is still possible to have the new methods possible for governance or clarity of ownership, and the business processes may change. Okay, so not all family members will be required. Not all family members should think that it is entitlement. I think everyone should be professionally qualified. Education is important. Capability is important. So I would say that the fundamentals will remain the same. Things will change. You have to keep adapting.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. I think this has been a wonderful session, and we got really your nuggets. I think somewhere where a summary of your book we've been able to condense into this 1 hour also, and some of the notes that I was making, and I think they really ring so true. One, realize that these things can be fixed. It's not that multi-generational businesses cannot thrive. They can thrive. There are some golden rules and principles to follow. You talked about those 5 Ds, dilemmas down to the destruction. So unless we address it over all these stages, of course, we'll end up toward destruction. But if we are able to address, then of course we can begin to thrive. I also heard you talking about trust, that building trust between family members, that everybody's interests are going to be taken care of. That came out very clear. Any last word from you before I conclude today?
Believe in yourself. I think that's the fundamental thing. Believe in yourself that you can do it, and you will do it. So I think that's thank you very much, Vimal.
Thank you very much.
It's always a pleasure speaking to you, chatting with you. Okay.
Thank you so much, and thanks to you for your time. I really appreciate this. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for this call. In about 2 days, you'll see the video available. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.